You know that moment I'm talking about, when someone you looked up to, someone who seemed so warm, so thoughtful, so perfect, suddenly reveals a side of themselves you never saw coming. Maybe they snapped at someone who couldn't defend themselves. Maybe they made a cruel joke and laughed a little too hard. Or maybe it was just a cold, distant look they gave someone when they thought no one was watching. And in that moment, you felt it, that uneasy shift in your gut, that quiet alarm in your mind saying, "This isn't who I thought they were." You weren't imagining it. You were seeing the truth slip through the cracks. This is the uncomfortable part of human psychology, the part where charm becomes a disguise and kindness is weaponized. Today we're pulling back the curtain on something that's shaped relationships, society, and trust for as long as people have walked the earth: the performance of goodness. Some of the most dangerous people you'll ever meet aren't the ones who scream and shout. They're the ones who smile sweetly, say all the right things, and convince everyone around them that they're the picture of virtue. But behind that smile is calculation. Behind the kindness is control. And the most unsettling part, many of these people aren't even trying to be fake. They've worn the mask for so long that they don't remember what their real face looks like. They've convinced themselves that their performance is who they are. And when you live like that, constantly managing a persona, always putting on a show, it's only a matter of time before the mask slips. And when it does, the damage can be brutal. Imagine this. You're watching a play. The actors are flawless. Their expressions, their lines, everything is perfect. But when the play ends, they take off their costumes, drop their roles, and become themselves again. But what if some actors never took off the costume? What if they lived their whole lives pretending, never breaking character? That's what we're dealing with. People who build their identity around the appearance of being good, not actually being good, just looking the part. And the thing about acting is that it's exhausting. Even the best performers get tired. Eventually, the mask slips, the energy runs out. And when it does, you'll see something very different underneath. Let's start with something called the great contradiction. When someone's words and actions don't line up. They'll talk about kindness constantly, but snap at a cashier. They'll claim to care deeply about honesty, but twist the truth in casual conversations. They'll post about saving the environment while throwing trash out their car window. These contradictions aren't just inconsistencies. They're signs of something deeper, a psychological split known as cognitive dissonance. Back in the 1950s, psychologist Leon Festinger described this as the tension we feel when our actions don't match our values. Most healthy people respond by changing their behavior, but pretenders, they rewrite the story, they justify, they rationalize, they become expert storytellers, spinning narratives that excuse their behavior while keeping their good person image intact. And that brings us to philosophy. Socrates once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." What he meant was, real goodness comes from honest reflection, looking at your flaws, admitting them, and doing the work to grow. But these performers don't examine themselves. They don't question their motives. They're too busy maintaining the show. Kierkegaard called this self-deception, not just lying to others, but lying to yourself so deeply that you forget the truth ever existed. You'll know it when you see it. They talk endlessly about values, but don't live them. They seem genuinely confused when you point out contradictions. They'll dodge the conversation, change the subject, or get defensive. They might even flip it on you, subtly making you feel guilty for noticing the inconsistency. But if you really want to know who someone is, don't watch them when they're trying to impress. Watch them when no one's watching. The real person comes out in how they treat people who can't offer them anything in return. Do they show kindness when there's no benefit? Do they help when it's inconvenient? That's where their character is revealed. And then there's the empathy illusion, one of the most chilling deceptions of all. There are people who've learned to imitate empathy like a second language. They know how to mirror your emotions, how to nod at the right time, how to say the right comforting words. But underneath, there's no genuine feeling, just calculation, just strategy. In 1990, researchers Salovey and Mayer described emotional intelligence, the ability to understand and manage emotions in yourself and others. But over time, people have learned to mimic this skill without the emotion behind it. It's not emotional connection, it's emotional manipulation. Studies on empathy deficits reveal a disturbing pattern. These people show surface-level concern, but there's no emotional core behind it. Their support feels rehearsed. Their comfort feels staged. They remember facts about your story, but not how it made you feel. They'll nod as you talk, but you sense they're already thinking about their response. When things get hard, really hard, their concern vanishes. They withdraw, because they were never truly present to begin with. Philosophers saw this lack of true empathy as a hollow shell. Schopenhauer believed that compassion wasn't just a trait, it was the core of morality. Without it, he argued, all our virtues are nothing but props in a play. You can say the right things, act in the right way, but if there's no compassion behind it, then it's just noise. Martin Buber took it further. In his view, a real human relationship, what he called an I-thou connection, means actually seeing the other person as fully human, not just a character in your story. Pretenders fail at this completely. They're so wrapped up in their image that they can't truly see anyone else. So, how do you spot them? Their empathy feels like a performance. It's always the right words, but never the right energy. They might listen to your struggles, but somehow the conversation always turns back to them. They'll offer advice instead of comfort, distraction instead of presence. And when you need something real, emotional support, vulnerability, connection, they'll disappear. Not physically, maybe, but emotionally. Because there's nothing inside them anchoring the moment. No depth, just a practiced routine. Now let's talk about the third mask, the selfishness disguise. This one's especially dangerous because it doesn't look harmful at first. In fact, it looks generous. These people appear helpful, kind, selfless. They offer to help, they show up, they give. But over time, something starts to feel off. Every kind act has a string attached. Every favor has a price. Every compliment is part of a transaction. At first, you feel grateful. Later, you start to feel indebted. Then comes the guilt, then the pressure. Because this person isn't actually helping you, they're investing in control. It's a subtler version of narcissism. In clinical psychology, narcissistic traits include an intense need for validation, a lack of empathy, and a belief in one's own superiority. But not all narcissists brag or boast. Some hide behind generosity. They've learned that playing the good guy wins admiration. That kindness earns them praise. So they use goodness not to serve others, but to elevate themselves. Research into something called defensive attribution shows that these types always find a way to justify their behavior. If they don't get the recognition they expected, they feel wronged. If you don't thank them enough, they get cold. They only help when it makes them look good. Ask them to do something thankless, and suddenly they're too busy. They're not interested in true reciprocity. They're addicted to the image of being helpful, not the reality of it. Friedrich Nietzsche warned about this kind of moral posing. He believes some people pursue virtue not for truth or goodness, but for applause. He saw it as a subtle form of self-worship, a way of clinging to superiority under the guise of selflessness. And Aristotle, in contrast, believed that real friendship requires mutual goodwill, that you care for the other person for their sake, not yours. That's why these pretenders can never build deep bonds. They only know how to play roles, not how to build connection. Spotting this type is easier than you think once you know what to look for. They keep a mental scoreboard of every good thing they've done for you. They expect praise for small gestures. They'll help when the spotlight's on, but vanish when it's inconvenient or unglamorous. They become distant if you can't return the favor. And somehow, they always end up being the hero in their own version of events. But ask them for something that offers no recognition. Helping you clean, driving you to a boring appointment, assisting when no one else will see. And they'll quickly find a reason not to. That's when the truth becomes clear. Let's go even deeper, into what I call the poison smile. This type is the most difficult to spot, because on the outside, they're perfect. Polite, well-mannered, always smiling. They say the nicest things. They never raise their voice. But something feels wrong. There's a chill behind the warmth. They make you uncomfortable, and you don't know why. That's because their weapon is subtle. They've mastered passive aggression, the art of hurting others while still appearing pleasant. Their compliments come with a hidden jab. Their jokes land just a bit too hard. Their concern feels more like criticism in disguise. Psychologists have long studied this behavior, labeling it covert hostility. It's hostility wrapped in charm. It's cruelty that's technically deniable. And in recent years, we've seen the rise of microaggressions, small, almost invisible behaviors that send hostile messages. The pretenders weaponize these perfectly. They don't explode. They erode. Slowly, steadily, quietly. They leave you second-guessing yourself, doubting your reactions, wondering if maybe you're the problem. Nietzsche understood this deeply. He described a force called ressentiment, a deep, toxic resentment that lives in people who feel powerless or inadequate. These people can't express their hostility openly without shattering their good image, so they bury it, then release it in disguised forms. They envy others' success, joy, or authenticity, but they won't admit it. Instead, they chip away at it with false concern, with backhanded compliments, with manipulative guilt. Confucius, in contrast, believed that true virtue is direct and honest, that if you have a problem, you speak clearly, that harming others with hidden words or nice cruelty is a betrayal of everything goodness should be. And if you've ever felt worse after talking to someone who seemed perfectly nice, that's probably what you experienced. So, how do you catch this? Pay attention to how they make you feel. Their compliments confuse you. Their helpful advice leaves you feeling inadequate. They celebrate your failures a little too subtly. They create drama, but somehow appear to be the peacemaker. They joke at your expense, and when you call it out, they act shocked and say, "It was just a joke." But your gut knows. It always knows. Now, let's talk about one of the most telling signs of all, the responsibility mirage. This is when a person never seems to be at fault, ever. No matter what happens, someone else is to blame. They take credit when things go right, but vanish when things go wrong. If they hurt someone, it was misunderstood. If they fail, it was bad luck. If they lash out, it was provoked. Their entire identity is built around looking innocent. And that means constantly rewriting history to make sure they always come out clean. Psychologist Julian Rotter introduced the concept of locus of control, essentially how much control a person believes they have over their life. People with an internal locus believe they're responsible for their choices. People with an external locus blame outside forces. The pretenders, they conveniently flip-flop. They claim internal control when they succeed. I worked hard, I earned this. But when they fail, suddenly it's someone else's fault. They sabotage me. I had no choice. I was forced. It's a defense mechanism called blame shifting, and they've mastered it. Philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre called this living in bad faith, the refusal to take responsibility for your freedom and choices. He believed that denying responsibility wasn't just dishonest. It was a betrayal of your very humanity. We're all condemned to be free, he said, meaning we must own our actions, even when it's uncomfortable. But the pretenders never do. They stay in denial because their image is more important than truth. Kant took it even further. For him, true ethics demanded taking responsibility regardless of the outcome. So, when someone constantly blames others, dodges accountability, and expects forgiveness without giving it, they're not just annoying. They're morally bankrupt. How do you spot this? Listen to their stories. Are they always the victim? Do they have long explanations for every mistake? Do they seem shocked when they're held accountable? Do they bring up your flaws whenever you mention theirs? Pay attention to how they talk after hurting someone. If they spend more time explaining why it wasn't their fault than actually apologizing, that's your answer. The real red flag? Ask yourself this. When they mess up and it directly affects you, do they sincerely try to fix it? Or do they just talk in circles, hoping you'll let it go? And this is why recognizing these patterns matters. Because these people don't just hurt you. They damage your faith in goodness itself. They leave you wondering if kindness is ever real, if empathy is ever genuine, if anyone is truly good, or if it's all just a show. That's the slow poison they leave behind, not just personal pain, but collective cynicism. But here's what you need to hold on to. Authentic goodness exists. Real empathy is out there. True kindness is not just possible, it's common. The pretenders are loud, but they're not the majority. And there's a simple difference between the two. Genuinely good people don't talk about how good they are. They just act. They don't keep score. They don't ask for applause. They don't hide behind nice words. Their actions speak before their mouth ever does. They're consistent, especially when it's hard. That's what makes them rare and worth protecting. When you start seeing through the masks, it can feel overwhelming. You might question everything: friends, family, relationships you thought were unshakable. But that discomfort, it means your awareness is sharpening. Your inner compass is realigning. You're developing what I call authentic radar, the ability to spot real integrity and filter out the performance. And that's powerful. But don't let that power turn into paranoia. Spotting pretenders isn't about distrusting everyone. It's about watching for patterns. Anyone can have a bad day, but repeated behaviors over time reveal the truth. The best way to protect yourself isn't to be cold, it's to be clear. Clear about what you'll accept. Clear about how you deserve to be treated. Clear about what real goodness looks like. So, how do you move forward? First, trust your intuition. Your gut isn't just guessing, it's processing tiny cues: tone, timing, body language, micro expressions. If something feels off, give that feeling a voice. Second, give people time. The longer you observe, the harder it becomes for anyone to keep up an act. Time reveals character. Third, look for patterns, not just isolated events. One bad moment is human. A consistent trail of contradictions, that's exposure. Finally, set boundaries. You don't need to argue, expose, or prove anything. Just quietly walk away from anyone who proves they don't value your trust. Here's what most pretenders are counting on: that you'll be too polite to confront them, too kind to leave, too forgiving to notice. But your kindness is not a weakness, it's a treasure. Your trust is not free, it's earned. And your empathy? That's a gift that should only be shared with those who handle it with care. When you start living this way, something incredible happens. Your relationships deepen. You stop wasting energy on people who drain you and start attracting people who fill you up. You build stronger bonds. You find people who match your integrity. You start experiencing the kind of goodness that doesn't ask for credit. It just shows up, quietly and consistently. Ironically, the pretenders, with all their lies and masks, end up teaching you something powerful. They show you what not to be. They make you crave authenticity. They make you appreciate the quiet, honest people around you, and they help you become one of them. So now that you know what's next, pay attention, observe, reflect, share, spread this knowledge, help others wake up. The more we understand these patterns, the less power they hold. Don't just be someone who spots the pretenders. Be someone who lives with real integrity. Someone others can count on, even when there's nothing in it for you. The world doesn't need more smiles. It needs more sincerity. It doesn't need more perfection. It needs more presence. Be that presence. Be the real thing. Be the example. Because in the end, truth may be uncomfortable, but it will always be more powerful than a beautiful lie. If this resonated with you, comment, "I see clearly now." And don't forget to support this channel, because by doing that, you help spread this message to someone who might really need to hear it today.